Would you risk your life for a complete stranger? What if it changed your life forever? Clara, with a simple gesture, changed Lucas's trajectory, but what seemed like gratitude soon turned into a game of manipulation, secrets and betrayal. What was she hiding? What did he discover? In a game of crossed lives, who will be the true winner? Get ready for a story of twists and turns, where the truth always comes to light and fate is sealed by the simplest of gestures. Follow Luke's journey, from naivety to revelation. What would you do in his place? You risked your life for me. Why? Asked Clara, arranging her hair with nervous fingers. Lucas looked at her simply, still holding the stick he had used to fend off the assailant. Because it was the right thing to do. I couldn't stand by and watch someone in danger. Clara watched him for a moment, assessing him. There was something about the way he spoke, without pretense, that intrigued her. I could just thank you and go on my way, but I think you deserve more than that. She gave a small smile. Thanking would be enough. Lucas shrugged, not understanding what she was getting at. She tilted her head, with a mysterious expression. Do you work nearby? Yes. I do maintenance at the mall. It's not glamorous, but it pays the bills. Clara seemed to consider something, as if she had already decided before she even spoke. I need someone reliable to work at my house. Would you accept? Lucas frowned, surprised. Work at your house? Yes. Gardener, for starters. My property is large and needs attention. She looked him straight in the eyes. It's an honest job and better than maintaining shopping malls, don't you think? Lucas hesitated. I don't know. Think of it as a thank you, Clara interrupted, smiling again. And of course the salary will be fair. The conversation seemed surreal, but Clara's proposal was tempting. Lucas accepted with a slight nod, still trying to understand what had just happened. Days later, Lucas arrived at Clara's mansion. The property was stunning, with spacious gardens and a house that looked like a castle. He was welcomed by Clara, who quickly introduced him to the employees. This is Lucas. From now on, he will take care of the gardens. The first few days on the job were peaceful. Clara occasionally appeared to watch him, always with an enigmatic smile. As time passed, their interaction became more frequent. You have a talent for this, Clara praised one afternoon while Lucas was pruning the rose bushes. Thanks. My grandmother had a small garden and I used to help her. I think I learned from her. Clara sat on a nearby bench, holding a glass of wine. You speak of her fondly. She was one of the most important people in my life. Lucas stopped working for a moment, looking at Clara. And you? Have you always lived in a place like this? She gave a soft laugh. Not always, but let's say that life has been kind to me. Her tone carried an air of mystery that Lucas couldn't decipher. Weeks later, during a sunny afternoon, Clara surprised Lucas. Lucas, I have an important question. She stopped next to him, her eyes shining. Of course. Say it. Would you marry me? He opened his eyes wide, speechless. Are you serious? Completely. You are honest, hard-working, and unlike anyone I have ever met. Lucas hesitated, but when he saw the sincerity in her eyes, he finally responded. Yes, I accept. The wedding was simple but elegant, held in the lush gardens of Clara's mansion. Despite the luxurious surroundings, Lucas couldn't shake a strange feeling, as if something wasn't quite right. On their first night as husband and wife, he expected Clara to come to the room to share that special moment. However, he was surprised by an unexpected explanation. Lucas, I'm exhausted, she said, leaning on the bedroom doorframe. These ceremonies give me terrible migraines. I'm going to sleep in my room today. In your room? He asked, confused. It's temporary, I promise. I just need to rest. Lucas nodded, even though he didn't understand. Despite being uncomfortable, he preferred to respect her space. In the following days, Clara seemed even more reserved. Nights apart became the rule, always accompanied by the same excuse: migraines. "Maybe you should see a doctor," Lucas suggested over breakfast. Clara looked up from her cup of tea, clearly uncomfortable. "I don't need doctors, Lucas. I already said that this will pass." Her answer left Lucas intrigued. He decided not to insist, but curiosity began to grow. One night, as Lucas returned from working in the garden, he saw a shadow moving quickly in the hallway. He thought he heard light footsteps and the sound of a door closing. When he went to check, he found the passage blocked. "Is everything okay, Clara?" he asked as he entered the living room. She was sitting on the sofa, looking very calm. "Why wouldn't I be? I swore I saw someone in the hallway." Clara gave a soft laugh. "You must be tired, Lucas. There's no one else here besides us and the employees." Her answer seemed convincing, but Lucas couldn't shake the feeling that something was being hidden. Days later, he began to pay attention to every detail of Clara's routine. She always said she needed privacy, especially during certain times of the night. Intrigued, Lucas decided to investigate. One night, he saw Clara leave her room silently, holding a small flashlight. He followed her at a safe distance, making sure he wouldn't be noticed. Clara walked through the mansion and entered a door he had never noticed before. When she disappeared, Lucas approached. The door was ajar, revealing a spiral staircase that led to the basement. He descended silently until he heard muffled voices. "Everything is going as planned. He doesn't suspect anything," said Clara. Lucas froze upon hearing those words. He leaned over slightly, trying to see more without being noticed, and saw Clara talking to a man sitting in a wheelchair. "I don't know how long I can keep this up," continued Clara. "He's too smart." Lucas returned to the stairs, his heart racing. This was more than he expected. Who was that man? And what did it all mean? He knew he needed answers, but also that he needed to be careful. Clara was hiding something big, and he would have to find out on his own. Lucas spent the next few days trying to act normally, but his mind was restless. Clara's words echoed in his head. He doesn't suspect anything. Who was the man she visited in secret, and what was she planning? That night, he decided to return to the basement. He waited for Clara to retire to her room and, carefully, went down to the door that led to the spiral staircase. "I need to know the truth," he whispered to himself as he opened the door. This time, there were no voices. Lucas went down the steps in silence, lighting the way with his cell phone. At the end of the stairs, he found a large, dimly lit space with old furniture and boxes of documents piled up. In the center of the room was the wheelchair, but to his surprise, the man was not there. Lucas examined the room and found a table covered in papers. Among them, he recognized a marriage certificate. "Clara and Henrique," he murmured, holding the paper with shaking hands. Lucas didn't have time to process the discovery. A sound of footsteps coming from the stairs made him hide behind a bookshelf. Clara slowly descended, accompanied by the man he had seen before. "You need to trust me, Henrique," Clara said, helping the man to get comfortable in the wheelchair. "We can't rush things. I trust you, Clara, but I'm tired of waiting. He needs to get out of the way." Lucas felt his blood run cold. It was clear they were talking about him. "It won't take long for him to realize," Henrique continued. "And when that happens, it will be too late for us." "Leave that to me," Clara replied with a firm tone. Lucas left the basement as soon as he had the chance, his heart racing. That night he couldn't sleep. All he knew was that Clara had a husband named Henrique, and that he, Lucas, was just a pawn in some plan. Over the next few days, he pretended to be normal while putting together a plan of his own. The first thing he did was use his free nights to study. He had abandoned his dream of becoming a physiotherapist years ago, but decided to take it up again. "You've been studying a lot lately," Clara commented one afternoon, observing him curiously. "I want to grow up, Clara. One day, I hope to value the life you gave me more." His answer was rehearsed, but it sounded convincing. Clara smiled, satisfied, without suspecting anything. While Clara continued her secret visits, Lucas began to investigate more about Henrique. He accessed public records and discovered that Henrique had been a successful businessman, but an accident left him paraplegic. Apparently, Clara was married to him, but had isolated him in the mansion, using Lucas as a distraction. Lucas decided to change the game. He intensified his studies and, after months of effort, managed to graduate as a physiotherapist. With the knowledge acquired, he began to work in secret with Henrique, pretending not to know about the past between him and Clara. "Do you really want to help me?" asked Henrique suspiciously. "Yes, I don't know the details of your relationship with Clara, but I want to do right." Henry, reluctant at first, began to trust Lucas. The hard work paid off, and Henrique regained some of his mobility. Lucas knew the moment of truth was near. He just needed to wait for Clara to reveal her intentions to deliver the final blow. Clara sat in the mansion's luxurious office, adjusting the divorce papers with a satisfied smile on her face. Lucas would be discarded just as she had planned from the beginning. With the documents in hand, she went down to find him in the garden, where he was working as he did every afternoon. "Lucas, we need to talk." Her voice was soft, but carried an icy determination. Lucas put down his tools and turned around, wiping the sweat from his forehead. "Of course, Clara. What is it about?" She held out the papers towards him. "I want a divorce." Lucas took the documents, read them quickly, and then looked up at her. "I expected that." "Did you expect it?" Clara raised her eyebrows, surprised. He gave a small smile. "Clara, you've never been exactly discreet." Before Clara could respond, Lucas took something out of his pocket. A small key. "Do you know what this opens up?" he asked, holding the key between his fingers. Clara tensed. "I have no idea." "Open the door to the truth. I know about the cellar, about Henrique, and about what you were really planning." Clara lost her composure for a moment, but quickly regained control. "And what do you think you know?" Lucas took a step forward, his expression now serious. "I know you used me as a pawn in your game. I know you never cared, that your plan was to manipulate me while keeping Henrique hidden." "So what?" Clara replied, crossing her arms. "You knew what you were getting into." Lucas chuckled softly, but there was no humor in his tone. "Perhaps, but do you know what you didn't know?" Before she could respond, Henrique appeared at the entrance to the garden, walking with difficulty, but without his wheelchair. "Henry!" Clara exclaimed, her voice full of disbelief. "Surprise, Clara?" said Henrique, the tone of his voice firm despite the obvious effort. "Lucas helped me regain my mobility. He gave me something you were never able to offer: hope." Clara took a few steps back, shock written all over her face. This doesn't make sense." Henrique approached slowly. "It makes perfect sense, and now it's time to settle the score." Lucas handed the papers back to Clara, but this time with an addition: a request to transfer the mansion to Henrique, as stipulated in the prenuptial agreement she had signed. "You can't be serious," Clara shouted, desperate. "Of course I am," replied Henrique. "You manipulated me for too long, Clara. And now it's you who's going to get out of here." With no way out, Clara realized that she had lost control of the situation. She took the papers with shaking hands, her expression a mix of anger and defeat. Lucas watched in silence as Clara retreated to the house, leaving him with Henrique in the garden. "Thank you for everything, Lucas," said Henrique, extending his hand. Lucas shook his hand. It was the right thing to do. Clara's plan had fallen apart, and Lucas finally felt like he had turned the tide. Weeks after her defeat, Clara left the mansion with a small suitcase in hand. The luxury that had once defined his life was now just a distant memory. Henrique and Lucas had transformed the property into a welcoming home full of new possibilities. In the mansion's office, Lucas and Henrique were reviewing the expansion plans for the rehabilitation clinic they had decided to open together. "You did a lot for me, Lucas," said Henrique while reviewing one of the contracts, "and not just for my recovery, but for helping me see what really matters." "I just did what seemed right," Lucas replied, smiling. Henrique looked up from the paper and looked at him. "Right or not, you gave me my life back, and for that I will be eternally grateful." Meanwhile, Clara struggled to start over. In a small apartment in the city center, she spent her days going through old documents and trying to find a way to support herself. For the first time, there was no one to manipulate her and no plan to execute. One night, while leafing through an old photo album, she found an image of her and Henrique in the mansion. She sighed, running her finger over the photo. "I had everything and didn't know how to value it." While Clara faced the weight of her choices, Lucas and Henrique celebrated the results of their hard work. The rehab clinic became a success, helping people recover and rebuild their lives, just as they had done. In the mansion's bright room, Lucas toasted with Henrique and the first patients who had finished their treatments. He knew his journey had not been easy, but he was proud of everything he had achieved. For Clara, solitary reflection on her mistakes was the beginning of a slow and uncertain beginning.